E te manga o te whare.
Mika Whaitari.
E te manga o te whare e tēnā koe. I ngā mimo te whare nei tēnā tātou katoa. Mr Speaker, I'm proud to belong to the Labour Party that in its DNA introduced social housing to this country. Not like that lot who flogs off, who dismantles and who does nothing. Sir, this Monday I had a housing meeting in my electorate of Maraenui and Napier, and I want to bring the human face to the impact of that government's sleeping at the wheel when it comes to housing. Sir, Marianne, 3 weeks due to have her baby. She has a 6 and 11-year-old. SIFs are getting involved. She wins on a daily basis to try and find her a home. She is terrified that if she doesn't get into a home, then SIFs will take her children. Kimberley, 2 months on the waiting list for a home, needs urgent housing. 4 children, sir, 12, 10, 9 and 7. Children sleeping on the floor in damp conditions in a Housing New Zealand property shared with others. An overcrowded Housing New Zealand property where a total of 11 people are living. D, waiting list registered in February in Hamilton, 2 weeks later moved to Hawke's Bay. 5 children, 4, 8, 9, 13 and 16. The last 3 months has moved between families and at times has had to split her family so they could be accommodated. Now living in a shed, tenant in a 2-bedroom property with 9 others and needs his shed back. Emergency housing provider said she can ring MSD, they will put her in a hotel or in a holiday park. This option D refused because she didn't want to wear the extra debt burden. She was also told that if she had a car, she was more likely to get a house. Unfortunately, D doesn't have a car. Jamie, 3 children, 1, 4, 6, was living in a car with her 3 children up until 2 months ago. Been boarding in a Housing New Zealand address for the last 2 months. The property is rented to a family of 4. Family only took her in temporarily and are frightened they may be asked to leave as they will be classified as overcrowding. Sir, this is the real life situation that is facing the people in Maraenui, Napier, Hawke's Bay and throughout my electorate. But sir, in that meeting, as practical as people are, they came up with some solutions to some of the housing issues faced, particularly in the people of Maraenui. They wanted to see the return of tenancy managers. They once upon a time had a tenancy manager based in Maraenui, but now that's all shut up and people have to ring an 0800 number, which we all know is never answered. They talked about the reintegration of the services offered between WINZ and Housing New Zealand. On the coalface, the agencies are often not talking to each other and we're dealing with different people at any one time. They asked if we could consider reintegrating those services. The other wish list they had, sir, was emergency housing. You know, I have no emergency housing throughout Hawke's Bay. The closest emergency housing in my electorate of Ikaro Rāwhiti is Palmerston North. We need emergency housing and we need it now. And the fourth innovative solution, sir, that these people came up with on Monday was the so-called homes that are contaminated by pee. Now, there is this rumour going around that they're contaminated by cooking of pee. Now, we don't promote any drug use in the homes, but there has been some feedback from tenants themselves or neighbours themselves that pee has been smoked in that house and they can be cleaned through a decent domestic clean. These people at this hui, sir, on Monday night offered to put their hand up to go into homes in Maraenui which have been tagged as pee contaminated to clean up, to allow more supply to house those that are on the waiting list. Sir, yesterday I came into this house and I asked the Minister of Māori Affairs if he believes that the government that he's propping up is doing more to help those people living in cars and shed. And I want to share some stats with the House. This is taken off the Ministry of Social Development's own website, where it talks about the housing register. Now, we've got 43.6% of all people on the housing register are Māori. We have 38.8% of all those on the transfer register, i.e. those in the house waiting to be transferred, are Māori. That is a total, sir, of 42.5% of all people registered on the Housing New Zealand waiting list are Māori.
Time has expired.
Kia ora, Mr.